He stood in the centre circle after the final whistle, hands on hips, staring at nothing. Andrea Pirlo had just played one of the most complete midfield performances in a European Championship final and lost 4-0. Spain had dismantled Italy so thoroughly that the scoreline felt like a statement, not a result. But buried inside that defeat was a single pass, 38 minutes in, that should have changed everything. It didn't. And the reason why tells you more about modern football than any trophy ever could. So, what happened? How does a player control a final and still lose it? Pirlo arrived at Euro 2012 as the most important player Italy had. Not the fastest, not the youngest, not the one with the most goals, but the one everything depended on. He was 33, playing for a Juventus side that had just gone unbeaten in Serie A, and he was coming off a season where he'd redefined what a deep-lying playmaker could be. He didn't press, didn't tackle much, didn't run. He stood still and made everyone else move. That was his gift. While other midfielders chased the ball, Pirlo waited for it to come to him, then sent it somewhere that hurt you. He played football like chess, 2 moves ahead, and by 2012, he'd perfected it. Italy's entire tournament structure was built around him. Cesare Prandelli set up a 3-5-2 that gave Pirlo space, protection, and time. Daniele De Rossi sat behind him to win the ball back. Antonio Candreva and Claudio Marchisio ran to create passing lanes. The system existed to let Pirlo think. And it worked. Italy beat England on penalties in the quarter-final, with Pirlo chipping his spot kick down the middle like he was playing in a park. They dismantled Germany 2-1 in the semi-final, with Pirlo completing 103 passes, more than any German player managed. He wasn't just playing well, he was playing at a level that made everyone else look hurried. Spain had seen it all before. They'd won Euro 2008, the 2010 World Cup, and now they were 90 minutes from a third consecutive major trophy. They didn't play with a striker, they didn't need one. Xavi, Andres Iniesta, Sergio Busquets, Xabi Alonso, they controlled games by keeping the ball, moving it in triangles and waiting for you to break. It was suffocating, patient and ruthless. But Pirlo was the one midfielder in world football who could match them for composure. He didn't panic under pressure. He didn't rush. If anyone could unlock Spain, it was him. That's what made the final so compelling. It wasn't just Italy versus Spain. It was Pirlo versus their system. One man's vision against a machine built to eliminate individual brilliance. The pass came in the 38th minute. Italy were already 1-0 down. David Silva had scored early, a neat finish after Spain had worked the ball through Italy's shape like it wasn't there. But Italy hadn't collapsed. They were still compact, still organised, still trying to find Pirlo. And then they did. De Rossi won the ball in midfield and played it square to Pirlo 10 yards inside his own half. Spain's press arrived immediately. Busquets closed from the left, Iniesta from the right. Pirlo had maybe 2 seconds. He took one touch to set the ball, shifted his body to the left as if he was going backwards, then opened his hips and clipped a pass with the outside of his right foot. It travelled 40 yards, curling away from Sergio Ramos, dropping perfectly into the path of Antonio Cassano, who was running into the channel between Spain's centre-back and left-back. Cassano controlled it, cut inside and forced Iker Casillas into a save. The chance was gone. But the pass wasn't, because that pass was everything Pirlo had built his career on. The disguise, making Busquets think he was going left. The angle, using the outside of his boot to bend it away from Ramos. The weight, dropping it into Cassano's stride so he didn't have to break his run. And the calmness, doing all of it while 2 of the best midfielders in the world were closing him down. It was the kind of pass that should tilt a final, the kind that makes a defence hesitate, makes a team second-guess their press, makes a manager adjust. Spain didn't adjust. They absorbed it, reset, and kept playing. That was the problem. Pirlo had delivered the moment of individual brilliance Italy needed, and Spain's system had swallowed it whole. It didn't matter that the pass was perfect. It didn't matter that Cassano had a chance. Spain's structure was built to survive moments like that. They didn't need to stop Pirlo from creating. They just needed to make sure one good pass didn't become 3. And they did. Within 2 minutes, Spain had the ball back. Within 5, they were camped in Italy's half again. By half-time, they'd had 61% possession. Pirlo had completed 47 passes, more than any Italian player, but Spain had completed 297 as a team. The pass had been brilliant. It just wasn't enough. The second half was worse. Spain scored 3 more goals. Jordi Alba made it 2-0 just before half-time, running onto a through ball that split Italy's defence in a way that felt like a direct answer to Pirlo's pass. Fernando Torres added a third in the 84th minute, then set up Juan Mata for the fourth in the 88th. Italy didn't collapse. They were just overwhelmed. Pirlo kept trying. He kept finding space, kept playing passes that should have hurt Spain. But every time Italy built something, Spain took the ball back and started again. Pirlo's pass in the 38th minute had been the high point. Everything after was Spain proving that one moment of genius doesn't beat 90 minutes of control. The statistics told the story. Pirlo completed 84 passes in the final, the most of any player on the pitch. He created 3 chances. He didn't misplace a single long ball, but Spain completed 683 passes as a team. Italy managed 309. Spain had 59% possession. Italy had 41%, and most of that was in their own half, trying to survive. Pirlo had played one of the best individual midfield performances you'll ever see in a final, and it didn't matter, because Spain weren't playing against individuals. They were playing against the idea that one player could control a game. And they won. What changed after that final wasn't Pirlo's reputation, it was the understanding of what he represented. He'd spent his career proving that intelligence and technique could dominate games, that you didn't need to run if you could think faster than everyone else. And he was right. But Spain had shown the limit of that idea. One brilliant playmaker, no matter how good, couldn't beat a team where everyone played like a playmaker. Pirlo's pass in the 38th minute had been perfect, but it was isolated. Spain's system didn't allow for isolation. Every pass they played had 2 or 3 options behind it. Every time they lost the ball, they won it back within seconds. Pirlo could control Italy's tempo, but he couldn't control Spain's. That's what made the defeat so significant. It wasn't a failure of execution, it was a structural reality. Italy had built their team around one man's genius, and Spain had built theirs around a system that didn't need genius. It needed repetition, discipline, and collective understanding. And when those 2 ideas met in a final, the system won. Pirlo never played in another major tournament final. Italy didn't qualify for the 2014 World Cup after losing to Uruguay in the group stage. Pirlo was still brilliant in that tournament. He set up Claudio Marchisio's goal against England, played a perfect ball over the top for Mario Balotelli against Mexico, but Italy couldn't defend, couldn't press, couldn't cope when the game got stretched. The same thing that had made them so effective at Euro 2012, the way they sat deep and let Pirlo dictate, became a weakness when they faced teams that could run at them. By 2014, Pirlo was 35 and the game was moving faster than he could control. He left Juventus in 2015, joined New York City FC, and retired in 2017. His legacy was secure: World Cup winner, 6 Serie A titles, 2 Champions League finals, a player who redefined his position. But the 2012 final stayed with him. Not because he played badly, but because he'd done everything right and it still wasn't enough. In interviews after, he didn't blame his teammates, didn't make excuses. He just said Spain were better. And they were, not because they had better individuals. Italy had Pirlo, Buffon, Chiellini, players who'd won everything. But because Spain had figured out how to make individual brilliance irrelevant, they didn't need a Pirlo because they had 6 players who could do what he did. Just not as well, but all at the same time. That was the lesson. The pass in the 38th minute had been a reminder of what football used to value. One player, one moment, one piece of magic that changed everything. But Spain had moved past that. They'd built something that didn't rely on moments, it relied on structure. And structure, when it's done right, beats magic every time. The 2012 final is still used as a reference point when people talk about possession football, about the limits of individual brilliance, about what happens when a genius meets a system. Pirlo's performance is remembered as one of the great losing efforts in a final, the kind of game where you played as well as you could and still got beaten. But it's also a reminder that football evolves. The deep-lying playmaker, the regista, the player who stands still and controls everything, that role still exists, but it's rarer now. Teams press higher, transition faster, don't give you time to think. The space Pirlo needed doesn't exist the way it used to. And when it does, you need more than one player to exploit it. You need a system. Spain proved that in 2012. They didn't stop Pirlo from playing well, they just made sure that playing well wasn't enough. The pass in the 38th minute was perfect. It was everything Pirlo had built his. Career on. Vision, technique, composure, under pressure. It should have changed the final. But it didn't. And the reason why is the reason Spain won 3 major tournaments in a row, because they'd figured out how to make one perfect pass irrelevant. That's what made them so good, and that's what made Pirlo's performance so tragic. He did everything right, it just wasn't enough. Was that final the moment football moved past the individual playmaker, or was Pirlo just up against the greatest team of all time?